You are listening to the Practicing the Art of Small Business podcast with Shannyn Merlo and Julie Parker. Join their conversation about business, leadership, and the self-awareness journey to greater success.
Welcome, Julie and listeners, to Practicing the Art of Small Business. Julie, we're up to episode 25.
25, baby. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
We're still of 100.
It is a quarter of 100. And we're still talking to each other, which I think is immensely beautiful.
That's right. That's right. You haven't started to annoy me yet, but you're not terribly annoying a person. So I can't imagine that the next 25 will be annoying either.
Let's not set any expectations on me that I might or might not be able to live up to.
How are you today, Shannyn?
Yeah, I am super. Thank you, Julie. And as I was pondering around this morning, thinking about what we could talk about in our podcast, I was thinking about the various different strategies that I've implemented along my journey and that have helped me in the past and that I might have dropped off or that are helping me now, and who knows how long they help me. And I wondered whether we could do a little episode around some of the tools, tactics, mindset, things that's helped our personal development as a bit of a shopping list thing that people can listen to and take on board if they want to for today's podcast.
I think you have not ever come up with a better idea. Goodness gracious me, Shannyn. It's certainly been my experience that you could read a book, a sentence, a quote, see something on television, and the impact that it has on you sometimes can be life-changing. And you and I have had things in our lives like that, as would all of our listeners and viewers as well. And so I would love to go through what you've come across, what I've come across, but also to have listeners and viewers share their bits and pieces with us as well. That'd be absolutely awesome. I love being inspired.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. You mentioned the viewing of us. So if you've started with us only audibly, you can actually oh my goodness, you can.
Crazy.
You can actually view on us on the YouTubes.
And view on us.
View on us on the YouTubes. So it is actually more entertaining, I think. When I'm doing the show notes, I watch us on the YouTubes because I think we're way more fun viewably.
You call it a plural, the YouTubes. How many tubes are there, Shannyn?
It's just the one YouTubes.
Well, let's kick this episode off, get the ball rolling. Why don't you flag one of your brilliant things that you have discovered in the past that has really affected your self-development?
Yeah, and this also came up because there was a discussion I was having with a client this morning, which is about the meaning that we put behind things. And this has been one of those concepts that really keeps just repeating in my brain very, very often, is that nothing has meaning except for the meaning that we give it. Have I ever done the blue pen analogy?
You have done the pen with me in the past on one of these episodes. I couldn't pick which one it was.
Oh, well, I won't repeat that then, but
because people may not choose to go back and listen to all the episodes trying to find that piece of information.
It was one of the early.
Continue on with your pen.
Well, the short story is that this is again, this is much more effective if you're watching us on the YouTubes.
We'll make you watch us. We'll put on a show.
So I've got this pen in front of me, and the reality of this is that this is some plastic. It's got some ink. It's got a nib on the end, and when I stick it on a surface, blue stuff comes out. That's reality. But how I interpret this object will be different depending on the meaning I put behind it. So if, for example, I'm going to actually extend this example, Julie, this time I'm going to give 3 examples. This could be a object of a weapon. I could stab you with it.
Thank God this is on Zoom.
I know, right? And therefore this could be an object of fear. I could take out the thing and I could give you a tracheotomy.
Oh, just in case, the stabbing didn't kill me. Your attempt at doing a tracheotomy might.
Back in the old days in ER, sure it was in ER somewhere.
I saw it on MASH. That's how old I am.
Oh, there you go.
Alan Alda did it.
So it could be a instrument of life savior, or I could be a really fantastic artist and I could use this to draw beautiful pictures that inspire and delight people. And so therefore it's something that is an experience of beauty. And their meaning that I put behind this object is that it's a tool that I use to create beauty. So depending on the meaning I put behind this inanimate object, and I think if for those people who aren't watching us on YouTube, it's a pen, by the way. So it could be either a weapon, a lifesaver, or a creative device.
And you said lifesaver or lifesaver.
Shoom, shoom, shoom. It could, do you know what? It could actually be a lifesaver if you want to pen fight with me.
That's right. We can put a what do you call it? An optic. What do you call it?
Julie's extending my analogy now.
That's right. Fiber optic light down the tube of it. And I did hear, if I could jump in very quickly, interrupt you.
Jump away. One
of the great marketers out there, I read it in a book and then I saw it in a presentation as well. I think it's a common knowledge thing for people that look at that kind of stuff. And he said, how am I going to sell you a pen? And so he gets everyone in the room to give an example of this is how I'd sell you a pen. Oh, look at this pen. It's yellow and it's got black ink and it's pretty and lovely. It's easy to write with and you can put the cap on it. And so the ink doesn't run all over your shirt pocket when you pop the pen in your shirt. And so they were going through all the benefits of the pen. And then one person stood up and said, I've got this contract that I'm going to use your content. I'm going to pay $1 million for that content. All you need to do is sign the bottom of this contract. Can I sell you this pen for $50? Don't you love it? I love it.
Love it. Love it. And the meaning therefore behind the pen is that it's just your meal ticket right there.
Yeah, it's $1 million. It's my link between me and $1 million.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize it was just going to come down to a pen. I've got to find that person selling those pens. That's what I've got to do.
But the point behind the meaning behind things is not about the pen. It's that there is reality and then there's what we make reality mean and the interpretation that we mean. And we put filters on things. We say something is good if it aligns with the things that we think they're good, or they're bad if it aligns with the values that we place on what is bad. But actually reality doesn't change. And so we can change the view of our world by the interpretation that we make to them. And that's been a really profound learning for me, because when bad things have happened, I've been able to change the meaning behind them, which has changed my association to them, which has changed my mindset to them. And that's been a really powerful tool that I've been able to use throughout my life.
Oh, sure. And you look at people that have gone through terrible tragedy. They've lost both legs. They've become a paraplegic. They've had terrible things happen in their life, which absolutely would destroy some people and they would no longer see a will to live. Yet these people find within them such a meaning behind what happened to them and they make it an empowering part of their life rather than not. And I've heard Charles mention before, in case you haven't heard, Charles is my magnificent husband. I've heard him say before that because he's a professional speaker and he has come across and worked with other professional speakers, one in particular that did become a paraplegic and then went on the speaking circuit to speak about how it can, that when people are thrown a terrible thing in life, that you can make that into a positive. And when asked, these people say, would you go back to being fully able-bodied again? And they say no. They've experienced such benefit from it. Shannyn, could I possibly give you my meaning story, my story about meaning?
Julie, you can do whatever you like.
I don't want to take the floor from thee, but I particularly like this. This is one where I tend to share with dental team members that I work with because it really brings that lesson home. It's called the Leffko Method, Lefkoe, the Leffko Method. And as I'm describing it to you, Shannyn, you may remember it because I've mentioned this in one of the past episodes as well. Within the Leffko Method, he uses the example, and Leffko is a man, a doctor of something or other, and it's called the Leffko Method. So people out there do look it up. But one of the examples that he uses so effectively is saying, okay, we've got a woman in front of us, and we ask her, how do you feel about the weather outside? Because it started to pour with rain, absolutely pour with rain. And she looks outside and she thinks to herself, that's okay. You know, gardens are getting watered. I don't care that it's raining outside. I'll just stay inside for the day. No big deal. What if I said that you were actually getting married today? It's an outdoor wedding and you've been planning it for 3 years. Well, now, of course, the rain outside means something different to her. And she says, well, I'm devastated. What am I going to do with all of the attendees, my guests that are coming with their hair done? How am I going to get down the aisle and still have my makeup perfect and my hair perfect? What's going to happen? This is a disaster. However, what if I now told you were getting married in a country where within that culture, rain on your wedding day means eternal love and happiness? Well, now I'm thrilled, overwhelmed with joy about the rain. So the rain, as you said, the rain itself, the pen itself, the rain itself doesn't change. The meaning that we attach to it does change. And we've got absolute control over that. Absolute control over that. And I think the trap that some of us find ourselves in is when we say, but it's hard to put a different meaning, but you don't know my situation, but. No. The one thing that we need to move through this world with if we want an empowered, happy experience is recognizing that recognizing the things that we have control over and the interpretation and meaning that we have over the situations around us equals the experience of life that we have.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful segue into the next thing that has had a very big impact on my life. And do you mind if I read a quote from Epictetus?
I would love if you read a quote from Epictetus.
Epictetus. So this is from the Daily Stoic, and it's January 9. And Epictetus says,
Thumper, did you say? Did you say thumper?
Says, some things are in our control while others are not. We control our opinion, choice, desire, aversion, and in a word, everything of our own doing. We don't control our body, property, reputation, position, and in a word, everything not of our own doing. Even more, the things in our control are by nature free, unhindered, and unobstructed, while those not in our control are weak, slavish, can be hindered, and are not our own. And so your talk about what you can control is exactly that. The only thing that we really can control is what's kind of going on in between our two ears. And your point around the buts, this doesn't work because, or but. We're looking for validation and we're looking for love and nurturance and certainty of our situation. But the reality is that that's not going to change our situation. It's our internal thinking that we can control, and it's that internal thinking that can help us get from here to there. And it's certainly wonderful when people validate us along the journey and give us a little love hug as we go. But if the way that we're dealing with our lives at the moment isn't helping and serving us, then it's a really cool point to go, well, I can control how I'm interpreting this. I can control how I'm thinking. I can control my actions, and that will actually change my outcomes.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And this might be stating the obvious, but one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned, and I'm sure it's the same with most people, is once you really start to understand what responsibility means. And so therefore responsibility over the meaning you attach to things, and recognizing that if you don't put a helpful attachment over something, that's on you. Completely, you're choosing that. You're choosing to remain stifled by your current situation, by remaining distressed by your current situation, not stepping out of that and not finding the joy, finding the opportunity in that, finding the area of growth in that. And my personal journey of self-responsibility, I don't know if there's any other kind of responsibility, 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 was when I was about 14, I think I was, and I must have been behaving beautifully as a child.
As you would.
Because I was lying on the lounge room floor on my belly, chin in hands, arms up on my elbows, watching MASH, something like that. Not Romper Room, but, MASH or I Dream of Jeannie or something like that on the television. And my mum walked by and dropped a book in front of me and said, "You need to read this."
Righto.
And it was a book by a woman named Dr. Irene Kasola, and it was called Putting It All Together. And this book, it was really designed to be more so for if you're in a long-term relationship and married, and it's just about recognizing your responsibility that you hold in that relationship and how well it goes. But I think Mum was possibly giving me the book early because I was showing signs of possible behavior that was not helpful to my future life. But I read this book and I loved every word of it. It just really brought home to me that, one, I'm responsible for all the things that happened to me. And as you've mentioned in the past as well, and I know Charles has mentioned as well, that if you want to go to the extreme end of responsibility, then you also recognize if you're walking at a green man across the road and a car comes by and hits you because they've run the red light, you still hold responsibility for that because you were there in that moment. Mm. And so we won't talk about that because that's the extreme end of responsibility. But I'm responsible for all the things that happen in my world. I have a direct role to play in that. But of course, that was the time at the age of 14. That was the time I started to recognize that I held a responsibility for my relationships, for the way I made other people feel, for my impact on others around me. And that was a big shift for me. I think maybe 14, I was possibly the most selfish child. Hadn't quite grown out of that whole, the world is all around me.
Yeah, I think it's probably more sustainable now.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you know what's so funny is if you were watching us, I had a pretty obvious reaction to Julie saying responsibility. And I like to take responsibility. But what I also love is a little bit of law of attraction. And somehow I managed to do that because if you have a look at my notes, which I didn't share with Julie before we started,
there we go, meaning behind things. What we have control over, responsibility, the third thing on the list.
Julie had no idea that I wanted to talk about that next. And yet, in order, she's gone on the agenda. And so that was what my reaction was. But it does beg the question of law of attraction and this serendipitous kind of connection that you have with things and people and the universe. Now, I'm in an interesting relationship with the universe at the moment.
Is it functional?
Highly. So I love the idea of the law of attraction, but I kind of have a bit of part pragmatic, part disassociation, part love it relationship with it. And so I might just quickly talk through that. When I say the logical side of law of attraction with clients, when we set up goals or intentions or visualizations of the future or visions of the future, whether you believe in law of attraction or not really doesn't matter in the context of business, because if you have a clearer idea of where you want to get to or what your goals are, you're more likely to achieve them. We just know that. You just, there's just clarity of understanding of the actions I need to take today in order to get here. Now, if you're into the law of attraction, and you don't have to be, free thinking. But if you're into that, then there's this idea that there's little nudges and there's little serendipitous meetings and there's these little things that happen that just help you along the way to get there. And that's what I love about the law of attraction. And when there's little moments where you're like, I'll be thinking about someone and they will call me. And it's like, oh my God, that's, and you sort of go, well, that's not law of attraction. But who says it's not? Because sometimes it happens so randomly. And I think that with the law of attraction, I like the feeling that I'm not alone. I like the feeling that there's this energy that's kind of supporting my development and my growth. And when I'm putting out there things that I want to help me, that somehow it's coming there. The part of the law of attraction that I've kind of lost faith with a little bit over the journey is this idea that if it's not coming to you or me, it's because I'm not focused enough, or I don't have enough trust, or I don't have enough faith, or I'm holding on to too much fear and what have you. And that's held me back recently, which is why kind of balancing it with this sort of stoic philosophy is really helping me, because I can still believe in the law of attraction in terms of kismet and having faith that something's out there supporting me. But on the other side, I don't have to get it right to be successful. I just have to do the right thing for me right now, control my actions, control my thoughts, which I'm kind of loving the balance of that.
Love that. Tremendous. Very, very good. What's the next thing on your list, lovely Les? Lovely Les. Sounds like I'm 80 years old. Little lassie.
Little lassie, little lady. A new one is listening to my rhythm.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the rhythm in your feet?
Banging the drums, baby. well, I think I'm a little bit older now. I'm a little bit wiser. And certainly in business, we are told you have to do things a certain way in order to be successful. And you have to get up and start work by a certain time, and you have to finish at a certain time, and you have to do it in a certain way, and you have to Yeah. And what I'm trusting more and more is that there's some days it's always good to have focus and have my to-do list and to do all of that. But if I'm really resisting working, or I'm really resisting this activity that I want to do, or I'm just really out of the flow, it's totally okay. What I'm learning for myself is it's totally okay to listen to my rhythm and go, you know what, maybe I might need just a little bit of self-love. I might need a little bit of a break. I might need to have a bit of a laugh or a dance or read a book or what have you. So I'm really trusting my rhythm, listening to my rhythm, and trusting that I don't have to do it because I've been told I have to do it.
Nice. I love that. And you know very well, Shannyn, I live in flow as much as as much as possible. I feel like when you commit to moving with flow, and of course we've got things that we must get done every day. I work from home, so there's a bit more flow and fluidity about what time I start work or what I concentrate on. But even when we're in a workplace and I'm actually on site at a practice and I need to get certain things done at a certain time, you can still work with flow. And what it is for me is about releasing any resistance we have to things unfolding in their natural order, and me having the impact and the attention on that thing in a way that is going to generate possibly better results because there's no resistance around it. And there's a great book that Charles does recommend. Now, this is a little challenge for me. Let me see if I can name the author. Hungarian man. Let me see how I go.
And you have to get the pronunciation 100% correct as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I can't pronounce it. If I said to you, this is the spelling of his name, Mihaly.
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 Michley.
Mihaly. Mihaly. But now get this is, I want you to write this down, Shannyn.
I have to go slowly.
Ready? CSZENTMIHALY. Crazy, isn't it? Charles has it roll off his tongue. Csikszentmihalyi.
I went to school with a girl who had a surname which was a CS, and it was Chazinski.
Oh, there we go. There we go. But
Anyway,
that book is brilliant.
What's it? Now that we've got the author's name, what's the book called?
It's called Flow. So quite topical about that point. But being in flow is allowing the universe to roll out without it stops us from thinking that we have supreme control and determination of what should be. It's releasing our attachment to all of that.
Okay.
And I keep going in flow because it works so well for me.
I'd love to explore that a little bit more, because your point about releasing resistance.
I'd buy the book, but I wouldn't know how to look it up. I actually have the book beside my bed. I'm halfway through it.
I'm sure I can Google. There's this thing on the interwebs. It's called
Interwebs. Oh my God.
It's called the Googles. And I can type into the Googles and the Googles comes back to me.
All of the Googles. That's hilarious. So when Charles and I first met, I'd been separated from my first husband for a couple of years. The divorce was going through, sale of the dental practice that I owned was going through. And there was a lot of stuff that was making me feel just, generally uncomfortable. And he said, just stop resisting everything. And I was like, what does that mean? Don't resist it. And so I just started repeating in my brain, no resistance, no resistance, no resistance. And as I was repeating it to myself, I started to recognize, I get how I'm resisting everything. I'm not having the difficult discussion. I'm not taking the steps further forward. I'm not doing all the things that would make sure that life kept progressing. I just wanted to keep holding on to the here and now because I know how to function in the here and now. When I started to say no resistance, I was amazed. It felt like I had blown down walls of the world trying to deliver my next part of my life to me, because it all just started happening real quick. And my experience of that and enjoying so much of what those changes were in my life has made me constantly say in my world, no resistance, no resistance. Just freeze all the ties that bind us, I think.
I really like the concept of that. Certainly the things that have held me back in the last few years has been a feeling of avoidance or resistance. So I'd like to look into that a little bit more. And I'm in two ways of going in terms of the direction for our next bit, because you did bring up the next line item again without preparation.
I didn't flow.
Yeah, well, it's pattern interrupts and
You're saying I interrupted you.
No, but pattern interrupts and mantras. But also I want to talk about surrender meditations, which is kind of linked to the releasing resistance. So I might do the meditation thing first and then hook back around. Is that okay?
Of course it is.
So last year, I meditate most days. Are you a meditator?
I'm not. I keep hearing I should be, the shoulds.
The shoulds, me.
And I'm sure I get enormous value from it. And the times that I have meditated in the past, it does kind of take me to a different realm. I still remember one time I was at a Dr. Wayne Dyer presentation when he still had his physical body here on earth. And took thousands in this auditorium into a different space. And it seemed like 5 minutes had passed and an hour and a half had gone past. I was amazed. So I'm sure there are ways of doing it that I would gain great satisfaction from.
Yeah, well, I am a supporter of meditation, and the reason why I support it, I always hint at it to clients who, especially those who are really struggling with anxiety and sleep problems. That's when I tend to introduce it as an idea, as a concept. And meditation has certainly helped me in terms of managing anxious feelings a lot more. So I found that meditation has helped those anxious feelings and just to calm them down a lot. So I support the idea or the doing of meditation for me for that purpose. And certainly if you're a bit of a churner like myself, a mental churner, meditation can really support that. Not just when you do it on the day you do it, but there's a flow-on effect.
You love a good worry.
I love a worry. I'm a good. I actually. So I've had various therapists and coaches and shamans and witch doctors in my
As much help as she can get.
Anything. I'll give anything a go once. But I did have one psychologist suggest to me to put a bucket around my worry time, like literally schedule it in. Like kind of go
over your head.
Yeah, well, so that I didn't become, so it wasn't a 24/7 rumination. I was like, I can't worry about that now. I've got worrying time at 5 p.m. And it does actually work. It's one of those pattern interrupts that I'll come back to.
Great.
So this could be something that helps you guys. If you are someone who's prone to overthinking or worrying, set aside time for the overthinking and the worrying, and you find that you don't actually do it that much then. But the releasing resistance, last year I got into surrender meditations, and this might be something that people might want to try on. The idea of a surrender meditation is to really feel into the emotions, the difficult emotions, because a lot of the time, and this is the same with anxiety, a lot of the time we fear the emotion more than anything else. So anxiety is bred often because we fear this feeling of feeling anxious. And a lot of mindfulness meditations is about just exploring what it feels as a body sensation. And the same for any sort of surrender meditation. So you're looking at any emotion that you're resisting or any resistance that you're resisting, resistance
that you're feeling maybe.
Yeah. And to just surrender to that feeling. And what surrender means is just to fully allow it to be in your body, to allow it to be there, to not resist the feeling of it there. And what happens at the end of a surrender meditation is that the resistance goes away or the feeling goes away and everything's a little bit calmer. So that's a meditation, that's a surrender meditation type that I've done, which has been helpful, that I like from the releasing resistance.
I love that.
Thank you. Should I go into pattern interrupts?
Please do.
One of the things that Julie, so the pattern interrupt is like as I just suggested, so setting time aside. But Julie, very early in the process, I think you came to me with the I am awesome, I am awesome, I am awesome, I am awesome, I'm awesome narrative or the mantra. And I think the first time you suggested, I was like, whatever, I'm not. So
you did. I felt resistance to my idea.
I did a surrender meditation and I was all good after I did that. But in recent times, I've used I am awesome as a mantra when either my brain was kicking into a regular thought pattern that I was having, or when I'm doing any self-doubt thought. So there's been a few things that have been going on where I've kind of questioned, do I know what I'm doing? And I am just, as soon as I get that thought, I interrupt it with, I am awesome, 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 I am awesome. And what's interesting is that I'm still able to question myself and I'm still able to improve myself. Because there's this thing of like, hang on, you've got to explore, you've got to have self-awareness. You've got to not be arrogant to where you can improve. But if you are getting caught in beating yourself up because your brain is telling you you're an imposter and you're not any good, being able to interrupt that pattern with a mantra can be really useful. And I thank you monumentally for your little tip on that one, Julie.
Well, that is my absolute joy and pleasure, Shannyn. And I cannot tell you how much and how satisfying it is to have you say that I'm right. No, but I'm thrilled that you've given it a whirl and it's actually worked for you, because it has worked for me immensely. And just to give everyone a bit of a quick snapshot with it, Dr. Bruce Lipton is an epigeneticist, and he's got a few speeches that get tweaked in different ways. I found this one version of his speech. It goes for about 5 or 6 minutes, and it just talks about how deep-seated beliefs are established before we reach the age of 7. If we find any of those beliefs are unhelpful, then there are 2 ways of shifting them. One is through hypnosis, because you go back into Veda brainwave work, and that's when you can shift it. That's how we do function up to the age of 7, which is why we absorb so much information before we're 7. The other way is through repetition. And so I thought I'd give it a go. And at the time, I wanted to be a great performer when I'm performing online with my lunch and learns with my clients, or when, at the time I was still doing Toastmasters that Shannon's been involved in as well. That's how we actually originally met. And I wanted to be able to get up and do my speeches with a lot of confidence. And so I started just repeating to myself one day on one of my long 1-hour walks, I'm a super performer, I'm a super performer, I'm a super performer. And I kept repeating it over and over and over again. And after about 10 minutes, I found that I was thinking about other stuff. What am I going to have for dinner? What sort of work will I do when I get back from my walk? I'll have a shower first, and I'll do this, and I'll do that. And what I realized that the tape that I had implanted, I'm a super performer, was still playing in the background of my brain. But then I was having all this normal conscious thought about what I was going to get done that day. And what there wasn't any room for was the terrible tape that we have in the back of our brain saying that you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? And so that became a daily thing. I would start to shift the message I was telling myself, because I'm a super performer. I shifted that unhelpful internal belief that I wasn't a super performer in a couple of weeks. And so then I went into, I'm super confident. I'm super confident. Then that worked. And then I've got plenty of time for everything. I've got plenty of time for everything. And then my more recent one, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. And it gets to the point, you do it for a concentrated number of days, you shift the belief, but then when you find yourself defaulting back to worry or anxiety or whatever, or listening to the negative self-talk that's rearing its ugly head again, you only have to say it a few times, don't you, Shannyn? All of a sudden it kicks you back into that more positive mind space.
Yeah, it really is very helpful. And definitely that repeating one mantra has been really helpful for me recently. However, there's been periods of time for me where I've had a series of affirmations that I've used. And one of the tools that I used many years ago, not many years, yeah, it would have been a few years ago, was I would wake up very stressed. So I would wake up and the first thing that I'd think about would be money stresses and, you know, what have I got to do, and the overwhelming amount of work. And this was literally as soon as I opened my eyes, the first thoughts were these quite challenging thoughts, which meant that I generally woke up having like a little bit of a panic attack. So what I did is I wrote down about, I think it was about 100 affirmations, and I borrowed some of them from online. I found ones that I liked, and affirmations is like, I am awesome. I attract great money. I have great clients. I'm very grateful. I deserve love and affection. Anything that is an I statement that feels good for you. And what I did is I recorded these affirmations, and I got into the neural pathway that as soon as my alarm went off, while I was asleep, I would play those affirmations in my ear. So as I was waking up, my brain couldn't say, we're stressed about money, because it was saying, you know, I am awesome. We have a great day. All of that sort of stuff.
Tremendous. That's enormously powerful. It's powerful to think that the negative self-talk is only functional if there's room for it. So don't be at its mercy. Push it out of the way with all your positive stuff.
Yeah. And I don't want to minimize for those, and I'm saying this because I'm projecting my own beliefs onto our audience here. I think that it can be really hard if you're not in the greatest headspace to accept some of these messages in, and you're where you are for a reason. This is that whole meaning behind it. So take what is useful for you, take little bits of tools and use them as stepping stones that is going to take you on the pathway. It might not be an overnight shift, but try to do things that are going to change your experience one way or the other, if you're not having the greatest experience.
I really want to say, because I want to say this all the time, and it's a safe place to say it in podcasts because no one's going to come back to me and say, yeah, but.
but we have actually asked our audience to provide us feedback on this particular one. Yeah.
I haven't said I'd read it, but we have asked for it. So what I really want to bring across is one of the lessons around responsibility was that we get given a hint of what the next helpful thing is. And for us to sit back and go, but it's hard, it's too hard. That's the excuse that a lot of us use. And a lot of people will feel quite justified in that space, but you don't know how hard it is for me. But you've got to follow that up with, it's too hard, so I'm choosing not to do anything about it. You've got to really identify your choice in that process. Most things in life are hard. The things that are worthwhile are hard. If you reflect back over your life and you think to yourself the moments that you remember, the moments that you feel like I achieved something, it was never the stuff that was handed to you quite easily. It was the stuff you had to fight for. And indeed, it ends up coming to the point of it's the stuff that you need to fight for. That's the worthwhile stuff. That's the stuff you've got to put a hook into and just do it even though it's hard. And if you're going to say, but it's too hard for me, follow it up with, so therefore I'm choosing to do nothing. It's my choice.
And I'm going to just back that up with two things before I think we wrap it up. The hard for me thing is really interesting. One of the learnings I had when I started coaching, or one of the ideas or concepts that I had when I started coaching, because when you coach people, it's quite when you first start, it's very difficult because you have no idea who you're going to get in the door and you don't know if you can help them. So I had a bit of a mantra of that. If they're in front of me, I can help them. And you're only being shown this hard thing because it's there for you to actually overcome. Because if it wasn't there in front of you, if you couldn't do it, it wouldn't be there. You wouldn't see it. It's this kind of, I don't know what it's called, but basically because it's in front of you, it's something that you can deal with. And so I think that that's really helpful if it's hard, but it's there because I can overcome it and I can actually achieve success of this. The other things that is important to take about hard things is things that are hard now will not be hard in the future as you've come to deal with them. So if you think back to when you started your business, the stuff that was hard back then is now easy, stuff that you've learned, and it's just second nature. So part of what keeps me going is when I've got a hard situation now in front of me, this is all setting the next brick layer of learning. And I think it was a coach who said, new levels, new devils. So, it's only hard because I haven't got to the other side yet. And when I get to the other side, there's going to be another hard thing. And the hard thing that I'm seeing now will have been easy when I see it retrospectively. So I like the idea of that concept, that if it's hard, I've got a responsibility. Hard things are hard because they are worth it, but also it's in front of you because you can do it, and it won't be hard when you overcome it.
I love it. I love it. Can I quickly throw in a quick little story?
You can throw a story in.
I was doing some research around a concept the last number of days, and I came across this blog that talked about this particular online game, which I think will describe this really nicely, hopefully, since I've stated that. It's called Osmos. And in Osmos, you are an organism and you're moving around the fluid, the medium, being this certain size of organism, and you're coming across other organisms that are smaller than you. And when you bump into an organism that's smaller than you, you gobble it up and you become a little bit bigger. However, if you come across an organism that's bigger than you, it will gobble you up, and that's the end of your game. And so as you're moving through this game, hopefully just bumping into and gobbling up these smaller organisms, you're growing. You're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And whereas at the start of the game, you came across larger organisms and shied away from them because you thought they would be the thing that defeated you, you then maneuvered through, got over overcame smaller organisms, became bigger and bigger, grew, and now you come across that larger organism, which now in comparison to you is smaller than you, and now you can gobble it up and continue to grow and continue to grow.
Kind of like a skin-eating amoeba.
I do like that word, amoeba.
No, I just wanted to throw that in.
I love it.
So, Julie, before we wrap things up, are there any other key tools, mindset shifts, things that are really in your bucket of tools that that's really helped you in your personal development journey?
Many. I have them listed, but I'll just mention one because this could go on for 3 hours. The one that I want to mention is Tony Robbins talks a lot about this. It's also a term within the Japanese language called Kaizen, constant and never-ending improvement. And I have adopted that as part of my way of functioning, but I also encourage dental teams, the teams that I work with, to go down this journey, down this path as well. Because when you think about it, okay, constant and never-ending improvement, sure, that sounds good. I'd like to continually improve. That's wonderful. That's progress. I get better and better all the time. I love that. Because I tell you what, Shannyn, when I reflect back to when I was 14 years old, I hope for damn sure I've gotten better. I want to get better all the time.
Have you asked him?
Wants me to get better all the time as well.
I was about to say, has your mum checked in and advised?
I should check in. Is it going okay, Mum? Is it all right? But with the constant and never-ending improvement journey, you need to be able to embrace a few different concepts in order to truly be on that path and get enormous joy from it and growth from it. So constant and never-ending improvement means there's areas to improve, yes? How are we going to identify areas to improve? If we haven't already identified them and improved them ourselves, we sometimes need to get outside feedback. Or we need to track our results to then have it be obvious to us those areas that require improvement. So we need to embrace feedback. We need to embrace the process of asking somebody, I want to try to get better in this area. Do you have any hints for me? So embracing feedback is one big thing. Another thing that's required in order for us to improve in any way is the mistakes that we're going to make on the path to that improvement. We never get everything right at the very start. Indeed, there is nothing that we have learned in our lives that we did so without any mistakes at all. So embracing the fact that mistakes mean growth. Mistakes means I'm progressing, I'm getting better and better. Another element that needs to be embraced is we move through our world subconsciously towards things that make us feel competent. It's not a great feeling to feel incompetent. And that can sometimes stop us from coming out of that comfort zone into the learning zone because we're not willing to accept the discomfort around incompetence in order to be able to learn something new. I don't like making mistakes. I don't like knowing exactly what I'm doing. So therefore, I'm not going to grow. I'm just going to stay where I am right now. So we need to embrace that there's going to be feelings of incompetence, and that's groovy and great. When I'm feeling incompetent, it means I'm trying new things and growing and developing. And the wonderful thing about incompetence is that if I'm committed to the growth and learning how to do the thing, that feeling of incompetence is quite temporary. And the other thing that is required in order to consistently improve, once we've identified the area to improve, we've identified the thing to do that we're going to feel incompetent doing at any particular time. And this is a big one for teams because sometimes teams don't give each other the permission for this, that in order to adopt a new skill and learn and master that new skill, we need to do it again and again and again. We need time to practice. So allow yourself the time to practice, repeat to get better.
I've got one more thing, which really I came up with because of what you said, and then I'll do a rappity rap to wrap us up. How does that sound? The reframe. So a reframe is really, really, really helpful, and it does go back to the meaning behind things. So it does do a little nice little circular thing of what this episode has been about. But you said mistakes mean growth. That's a reframe. Mistakes means I'm getting better. That's a reframe. So when you've got a held belief and you can reframe what that means for you, then it becomes something that is powerful as opposed to something that holds you back. So it's sort of like the meaning. So mistakes means I'm a failure, or a mistake means that I've got something to overcome. It means that I can grow in this space. It means that I'm going to get better once I have overcome this challenge. So that's a reframe technique. And it's something that coaches do quite a lot. And they'll ask you to think about another way that you can reframe it so that it's more beneficial to the way that you live your world and achieve your goals.
That is it. And the thing that came up in my brain, just as you were saying that, Shannyn, is how often do we say to ourselves as young people growing up, and then we kind of stick with these unhelpful beliefs as we move through adulthood, I'm making too many mistakes, I can't do it. And that's it. Then we put a stop. Brick wall right there, don't even try any further. Where it's through the trying that we get better at it.
Well, so to wrap it up.
Nice one. I can just about see the LPs, the records that you...
The wrap up for today's episode, the tools that Julie and I have used on our journey, some of the tools is thinking about the meaning that we put behind things, understanding what we can control, what is within our control and what is not, making sure that you're taking responsibility for your outcomes and taking responsibility for how you turn up in the world. We talked a little bit law of attraction. I'm following my rhythm. Julie's getting into flow. I'm grateful to Julie for a pattern interrupt. I am awesome. I am awesome. I am awesome. Julie is a super, I was going to say you're a super computer, but you're super
confident, super performer, really, really awesome. Plenty of time for everything.
Check out some affirmations, which might be useful, a whole bunch of affirmations as opposed to an ongoing mantra. If you've not meditated and you want to give that a bit of a crack, check out meditations. Mindfulness ones are great. Surrender meditation around resistance. Julie loves a bit of constant and never-ending improvement. I love a reframe, and we love doing this podcast with you.
Nicely done, Shannyn. That's fantastic. If you have enjoyed this episode, whether you've been viewing it on the YouTubes or listening to it on the podcasts, please subscribe and share it with other people that you think may enjoy it. We always do like to ask for a 5-star positive review. We accept anything, but the 5-star positive ones make us feel better. And I look forward to seeing you next time, Shannyn. Thanks so much for another tremendous episode.
Thank you as always, Julie. Thank you, listeners. See you next time.